My family called me a disappointment at my own birthday dinner. The cake was already melting when my sister raised her glass. Before we sing, Lydia said, smiling too widely, I think it's time we finally say what everyone's been thinking. Laughter. Not kind. Not warm. Measured. The kind that lands before the words do. I stood at the head of the table in my own dining room, 48 years old, surrounded by people who had known me my entire life, and somehow felt less seen than ever. My mother didn't stop her. That was the first confirmation. Clara has always meant well, Lydia continued, tilting her head toward me. But let's be honest, she never quite lived up to her potential. A few nods. Someone looked down. Someone else smirked. I felt the weight of it. Not the words. The agreement. I mean, Lydia added lightly, no husband, no children. Still renting at her age. It's a little disappointing, don't you think? The room didn't argue. That was the worst part. I reached for the knife beside the cake. Not to cut it.
Just to steady my hand.
Then I set it down. And, instead, I reached into my bag. I was wondering, I said calmly, how long it would take. And just then, the doorbell rang. No one moved at first. That's the thing about discomfort. It freezes people in place. Are you expecting someone? My mother asked, her voice tight. Yes, I said. I didn't rush. I didn't explain. I simply walked past the table, past the decorations Lydia had insisted on choosing, and toward the front door. Behind me, chairs shifted. Whispers began. Curiosity, replacing confidence. Good. I opened the door to find Mr. Ellison standing there, tall, composed, holding a leather folder against his chest. Right on time. Miss Clark, he said with a slight nod. Thank you for coming, I replied. Then I stepped aside and let him in. The moment he entered the dining room, the energy changed. Not dramatically, but undeniably, because presence matters. And authority, even unspoken, is felt. This is Mr. Ellison, I said, returning to my seat. He's here regarding my father's estate. Silence. Heavy. Immediate. Because my father had been gone for 3 months. And until that moment, no one had mentioned an estate. My father and I hadn't been close. Not in the way Lydia and he were. She was the visible success. The one who followed the path. Marriage. Children. Stability. I was different. Independent. Quietly ambitious. Less visible. Easier to underestimate. But my father noticed things.
He just didn't always say them out loud.
The last time I saw him, he didn't talk about family, or legacy, or regret. He asked me one question. Are you still working at the firm? Yes, I told him. He nodded. And that was it. At the time, it felt insignificant.
Now,
I understood it was the only question that mattered. And estate. Lydia repeated, her voice sharper now. Yes, Mr. Ellison said calmly. Your father left specific instructions to be carried out in the presence of immediate family. My mother straightened in her chair. Why weren't we informed earlier? She asked. You were, he replied gently. The notice was sent to all registered addresses. Lydia frowned. I didn't receive anything.
I didn't respond.
Because I knew she had. She just hadn't read it. Details were never her strength. Perception was. We can proceed now, Mr. Ellison continued, placing the folder on the table. The cake sat untouched. Candles still unlit.
Perfect. Please do, I said.
He opened the folder carefully, deliberately, every movement precise. This document, he began, outlines the distribution of Mr. Clark's assets, including property, investments, and controlling interests in Clark Holdings. That got attention. Immediate. Because, while my father never spoke about it openly, everyone knew he had built something. Quietly. Successfully. And no one quite knew how much it was worth. Until now. Lydia leaned forward. So, how is it divided? She asked. Straight to the point. Always. Mr. Ellison glanced at me. Briefly. Then back to the document. Not divided, he said. The word landed harder than anything Lydia had said earlier. Excuse me, my mother asked. Your father chose not to split the estate, Mr. Ellison clarified. Instead, He structured it under a single controlling beneficiary. Silence. Then,
Who?
Lydia asked. Not nervous. Not yet. Just impatient. Mr. Ellison closed the folder slightly. Then looked up. At his request, he said, this information is to be disclosed after confirmation of specific conditions. I felt Lydia's eyes shift toward me. Suspicion. Finally. What conditions? She asked. I leaned back slightly.
Relaxed. Composed.
The ones he knew I would meet, I said. 6 months before my father passed, I received an email.
Short.
Unusual. From his personal account. No greeting. No explanation. Just a document attachment. And one sentence. Review this carefully. That was all. Inside the attachment was a corporate structure. Clark Holdings. Layered.
Complex.
But familiar. Because this was what I did. Corporate restructuring. Risk analysis. Asset protection. I spent 2 weeks reviewing it. Not because it was difficult, but because it was intentional. Every clause. Every condition. Every trigger.
Designed. Precise.
Purposeful. And, at the center of it, a requirement. Not for inheritance, but for control. Back in the dining room, Lydia's patience was fading. This is unnecessary, she said. Just tell us who he chose. Mr. Ellison didn't respond. Instead, he looked at me, waiting. I nodded. Permission granted. Clara Clark, he said. Simple.
Clear.
Final. The room shifted instantly. No, Lydia said. Too quickly. Too sharply. That's not possible. My mother didn't speak, but her expression changed. From certainty, to confusion, to something else. Something quieter. Recognition. There must be a mistake, Lydia continued. I handled everything for him. I was there. Which is precisely why the conditions were structured the way they were, Mr. Ellison said calmly. That stopped her. What does that mean? She demanded. It means, I said softly, this wasn't about presence. I met her eyes. It was about understanding. Mr. Ellison opened the second document. This clause, he said, required the beneficiary to identify and correct structural vulnerabilities within Clark Holdings prior to full transfer. Lydia blinked. English, she said. I almost smiled. It means, I translated, that whoever inherited it had to fix it first. The vulnerabilities weren't obvious.
Not to someone outside the system.
But to me, they were clear. Outdated subsidiaries. Tax exposure risks. Contractual inefficiencies. I didn't ask permission. I didn't announce it. I just started working. Quietly. Legally.
Strategically.
I submitted the restructuring proposal 2 months ago, I said. Mr. Ellison nodded. Approved and implemented, he confirmed. Lydia stared at me. You did what? She asked. I protected the company, I replied. Financial control transferred immediately. Accounts. Assets. Authority. Not gradually. Not partially. Completely. Lydia's confidence cracked next. Not loudly, but visibly. Because for the first time, she didn't understand the room. My mother spoke then. Softly. Why didn't you tell us? She asked. I looked at her. Carefully. Because you already decided who I was, I said. Reputation shifted quickly. Relatives who once dismissed me. Repositioned. Politely. Cautiously. Social dynamics changed. Invitations. Conversations.
Tone.
Everything recalibrated. Professionally, I stepped in. Not as an outsider, but as the one who had already been doing the work. Lydia tried to challenge it. Legally. Emotionally. Strategically. But the structure held. Because it was designed to. The final confirmation came in writing. Clear. Binding. Unquestionable. The house felt different after that night. Quieter. Not empty. Just real. I didn't cut ties. I adjusted distance. There's a difference. The business grew. Stronger. Cleaner. More resilient. I bought my own home. Not large.
Not showy. Just mine.
A year later, I stopped replaying that night. Not because I forgot it, but because it no longer defined me. They had called me a disappointment. And, for a moment, I let them. Because sometimes the most effective response isn't correction, it's timing. And when the moment finally comes, you don't raise your voice. You open the door and let the truth walk in on its own terms. Because in reclaiming what was always within my reach, I finally stepped into a life that no longer needed their approval to feel complete.